The second leadership trait which I want to touch upon today is the decision making framework. How do you make decisions? Do you have any framework to start with? Many of us don't, yeah? Think of a situation in which you are supposed to take a decision, or you've been asked about something and they need your suggestion. What do you do? Naturally, many of us will jump online, will look the issue up, will see how people have handled it differently, how this has been handled by various people. Will learn from their knowledge, will learn from their experiences, will research about it, right? Some of us will use our previous experiences to make the judgment call. What tools do we use for this decision making process? It's jumping online and doing research is one. Talking to people is another one. This success or failure in our lives, whether personal or professional, is determined by the actions we take as a result of our decisions. So eventually your decisions will drive a success point or a failure point, right? The ability to be decisive is one of the vital skills that a leader should have, and this is one of the competencies which the big organizations that they look for when they are hiring for a leadership position. So while this decision making, the whole process of decision making involves effort from our end, definitely. Again, there are heaps of framework out there which you can take help from, you can take guide from throughout your process to land a decision. But have you ever thought about what Allah SWT and His Rasulullah SAW has given to us? What framework do Allah SWT and His Rasul has given to us? Have you ever pondered? No? In Surah Ash-Shura, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ وَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And their affairs are decided upon by shura between them. There is a hadith in Tirmidhi, narrated by Hazrat Sabit radiyallahu anhu, that the Messenger of Allah SAW said, لِيَسْأَلْ أَحَدُكُمْ رَبَّهُ حَاجَتَهُ حَتَّى يَسْأَلَهُ الْمِلْحَ وَحَتَّى يَسْأَلَهُ الشِّسْعَ وَحَتَّى يَسْأَلَهُ الشِّسْعَ نَعْلِهِ إِذَا انْقَطَعَ. Subhanallah. Let one of you ask his Lord for his every need until he asks him for salt, and ask him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the strap of his sandal when it breaks. Allahu Akbar. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasulullah is saying. We need to turn to Allah for each and everything. It's good to talk to people and take their opinions, but eventually we need to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He only knows and we don't know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has the knowledge of unforeseen. We can only do so much. And that's it. And then we need to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we need to ask Allah's guidance. And how do we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask His guidance in our affair? Ask His Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance from His infinite wisdom. How do we do that? Rasulullah SAW has taught us how to do it. There, Hazrat Jabir bin Abdullah radiyallahu anhu says that كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعلمون الاستخارة في الأمور كلها كالسورة من القرآن إذا هم بالأمر فليرقع ركعتين ثم يقول اللهم إني أستخيرك بعلمك وأستقدرك بقدرتك وأسألك من فضلك العظيم فإنك تقدر ولا أقدر وتعلم ولا أعلم وأنت علام الغيوب اللهم إن كنت تعلم أن هذا الأمر خير لي في ديني ومعاشي وعاقبة أمري فاقدره لي ويسره لي ثم بارك لي فيه وإن كنت تعلم أن هذا الأمر شر لي في ديني ومعاشي وعاقبة أمري فاصرف عني واصرفني عنه واقدر لي الخير حيث كان ثم أرضني به. So Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu anhu is saying, the Prophet ﷺ used to teach us to seek Allah's counsel in all matters, as he used to teach us a surah from the Quran. He ﷺ would say, when any one of you intend to do something, let him pray 2 rak'ahs other than the obligatory, other than the first prayer, and then say, O Allah, I seek the counsel of your knowledge, and I seek the help of your omnipotence, and I beseech you for your magnificent grace. Surely you are capable, and I am not. You know, and I know not. You are the knower of the unseen. O Allah, if you know that this matter is good for me in my religion and in my life, and for my welfare in the life to come, then ordain it for me, make it easy for me, and then bless me in it. And if you know that this matter is bad for me in my religion and in my life, or for my welfare in the life to come, then distance it from me, and distance me from it, and ordain for me what is good wherever it may be, and help me to be content with it. Rawahu Bukhari. This is the dua of istikhara. Right. Don't just reserve istikhara and mashwara for deciding on a marriage proposal, or when you are about to accept a job offer. You see, istikhara comes from the root word khair, khayara, khair, yeah? And istikhara, it's from bab istaf'al, which means to ask for khair from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't we need khair in every aspect of our lives? Don't we need khair in every aspect of our lives? Why are we so stingy when it comes to asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance? Especially at workplace setting, especially in our professional lives. As leaders or executives, regardless of our position within an organization, it is essential. It's absolutely essential to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance in whatever you are about to do. So you see, the model that we get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasulullah SAW to make any decision is threefold. Number 1 is istikhara, number 2 mashwara, and number 3 tawakkal ala Allah. So we do istikhara to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to seek His guidance. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to khair, to guide us to a better decision which will lead to a better outcome. If we are short of time, there is a smaller version as well. Allahumma khirli wakhtarli. Allahumma khirli wakhtarli. Oh Allah, make it good for me and choose for me. So again, we are just submitting it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah, you pick, you pick it up for us. You choose it for me. I don't know, you just choose it for me. You know everything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 2, mashwara. So to make mashwara with the people who have the right knowledge, so that you can learn from their experiences. They can guide you correctly or make you aware of any nonsense that you should know. This is very important, and more often than not, as a leader and as a manager, we have a big ego which stops us doing this, right? Just think of a scenario, when you are about to make a decision, do you go and consult your team? Do you go and consult a junior member of your team? We need to put our ego aside when a decision is being sought. Let's be inclusive. Call a meeting and make mashwara with the relevant people, with the right people. It's okay to get suggestions from our subordinates, and it's perfectly alright to base the decision on their suggestions. Instead of telling them what to do, create a level playing field. Genuinely engage in a conversation with them, listen to them, ask them, give them the opportunity to share their thoughts, and then arrive at a decision, right? So istikhara, number 1 istikhara, number 2 mashwara, and number 3 tawakkal ala Allah. Putting our full trust on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once we have taken a decision, once we have done istikhara, we have made mashwara, we have taken a decision, now we need to have firm conviction in our hearts that it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has the power to determine outcomes. It's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who can put khair in my decision, who can guide us to a better outcome. It's not me, not my capabilities, not my experience, not my education. It's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for this we make dua. We make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do manajat with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have a conversation, have a secret conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, I followed the sunnah of your beloved Rasulullah SAW. I did what you asked me and your Rasulullah SAW asked me to do, and I took this decision. Please make it easy for me. And you just submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. It's easy. And then, you just submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Leave it to the one who is all powerful, who is all knowing, who can do things. Yeah. So just to wrap it up, the decision making framework that we have is that number 1, we seek khair by doing istikhara. We do mashwara with the right people, and then finally we do tawakkal ala Allah, that is we submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for goodness in everything. Do istikhara, the long one or the short one, just do istikhara all the time. After every salah, whatever you have in your mind, things that are in your mind, just ask khair in it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the meetings, in our correspondence, or while executing any task. This is the decision-making framework that we get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jazakallahu khair.